This podcast is being powered by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. What up, y'all? Welcome back to Mentally a Badass. My name is Justine, and I have my friend LoLo here today. And today we are going to be talking about working a customer service role and experiencing burnout. This is definitely a topic that her and I can both relate on, so I'm super excited to talk about this today. So, LoLo, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the world.
Hey world, here I am. Hey, my name's LoLo. I'm 23 years old. I'm an actor, social media manager, person who does a lot of things. But right now, during the pandemic, I definitely had to find some sort of survival job. So I found myself in a customer service role, taking calls for unemployment, which is so topical during this time. And I think one of the main things that we talked about when we started talking about this episode was that it can be really exhausting, and so I've kind of experienced that unexpectedly, and it wasn't a career that I thought I was going to go into or a job that I would ever have, so very different. But yeah, that's how I came to find myself in this situation.
Yeah, I first want to say you rock for working in the unemployment position right now for customer service, especially. I'm sure that call volume is very high right now, and I'm sure you're probably listening to a lot of stories, like a lot of heavy stories. That can be a lot. So definitely give you a lot of props for that. I truly do. When you told me that, I was like, you are amazing. Did you ever do any other customer service jobs growing up, or is this your first gig?
I think the only similar thing was when I was an undergrad at UF, I worked at Pita Pit for like a week or a couple of weeks. I don't know. It was right before the pandemic. But it was the closest thing to, I guess, like having to deal with people who are angry, not like angry, but people who are upset when you get their order wrong or when things don't work out. And I just had never had that experience before, but that was a lot more low stakes because it was just like I made your pita wrong, as opposed to now it's like, oh, like you can't pay your bills. It's much bigger, so it's definitely feels like something new, and like I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like there's two extremes. For me, when I was 16, I worked at Bon Pan, which is like a Panera Bread. So I work as like a cashier person there, and then now I'm working in a company where it's very high standards for customer service. So I at least had different jobs in between to kind of go up that staircase or ladder, or whatever you like to call it. But you went from making pita to taking unemployment calls, which, like I said, I don't think I can do that. For me personally, I feel like I would be crying all the time or something like that. I
it's It snowballed because at first, the job opening was just for a remote work from home customer service or tech support job. And I was like, well, I'm not doing tech support. That's so not me. So yeah, customer service, just because with my theater experience, I have my degree in theater, which I think is really similar to communications degree. Like I can say that I am skilled in talking to people. So I feel like it wasn't hard for me to talk to strangers and, memorize the scripts and figure out phone lingo. But I think the hard part did come with, like you said, with hearing the really hard stories, and especially just the way the unemployment system is set up. I won't get into it, but it's basically just, too many people for what the systems can handle right now. They weren't expecting a pandemic, and they're not prepared. They don't have enough people working. So my job is pretty much telling people to continue calling. I can't help you, but you have to talk to the person who can, but it's really hard to get through to them. And, people tell me they've called every day for months. And it's hard to hear these things, but I think it's motivating also to get back up and do it every day, because if I can even help one person, it's good to know that at least I did something, even though sometimes I feel really powerless in my position. Because it's not that I don't want to help, it's just like I don't have the ability, as I'm sure you know, as a customer service person. There's a certain point when you just can't, even if you want to.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like, oh wow, I just lost my train of thought for a second.
Sorry, I went on for a
I was
second.
No, you're good. It's my fault. I was going for a drink of water and I was looking at the UF bottle that we got in our little goodie bag, and then I
True.
lost my train of thought. um yeah, but I really do like how you have that whole mindset and outlook, knowing that you wake up in the morning like, okay, I'm glad that I can like help somebody, even though in our position we can only do so much. It really depends, of course, what the kind of customer role position you are in and what you can and can't do. But for like call volume wise, so you taking like, I'm assuming taking like back to back calls?
Pretty much when I started in May, so I started in May of 2020, right after the pandemic hit, which now that I'm like realizing how difficult it is to get a job, I'm like, how did I find this random job? And I just started as a quote unquote new claims agent. But as more and more people lost their jobs and as the COVID situation got worse, more and more people started calling in, and the way that the system for the state that I work for does it is, if you have any sort of problem, anything from website issues to you haven't been paid in months, those all go to the same place. And as you
Hmm.
can imagine, with the population of Texas and with millions of people being unemployed, and of course, there's going to be errors, there's going to be website issues, there's a lot of people who don't even have internet access. There's just, the call volume is so overwhelming, that a lot of time people think they're getting through to somebody who can actually help them, and then they're like, "Oh no, it's you again," and I'm like,
Oh no, it's you again. Oh my
right.
god. Yeah, no, I mean I was on unemployment, not now, but when I was in college, I was transitioning from working as a substitute teacher, then having the summer, and then moving to Florida. So I didn't want to like get, there was no point in me getting like a job for like 2 months. So I just applied for unemployment, and then they gave it to me because for substitute teaching, I was in a, not like laid off, but there's no work, so in the way that that makes me
Mm-hmm.
qualified for unemployment. And I remember how difficult it was to get unemployment. Like I would be on the phone for like a week or two, and then I was on the phone one time for like 2 hours, and then I got an agent, and then the call dropped.
Gosh, yeah, and
I was so mad.
I hear stories like that literally all day, every day.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
it's because of the high call volume. It's a technical thing. I mean, for me,
mhm,
I work at a call center job
mhm.
too, and sometimes I'll get a call and it would just be like no audio. And or so then if we don't hear audio for X amount of time, we have to spiel that unfortunately we don't hear any audio to give us a call back, and then we have to hang up and release the call. And in that way, it's kind of like if the call dropped on their end, but they can't hear us, so it's like an audio issue. But it's no one's fault. It just stinks on their end because
Mhm.
it's all about the luck. It's like, yeah.
Which I feel like, and this is where it gets really hard, is, as I'm sure as empathetic humans, it's terrible that somebody should have to call all day every day to try to get their unemployment, and to have to pay their rent, and especially right now it's getting really cold and people are like, I'm not gonna have heat.
Oh man, that's
um
rough.
and I've really had to deal with, because like as I mentioned before, like this snowballed into something that I wasn't expecting. And when I was talking to my therapist about it recently, I was just like, I am so exhausted from hearing all these stories, but I feel so terribly guilty because like people are telling me how they're going to lose their house, and here I am sitting in my very nice house, and like it just feels like the wealth disparity is just so blatant and so shocking. um and it's really hard to stomach, so like I kind of had to take an emotional step back and be like, okay, All I'm seeing is a really tiny snapshot of these people's lives. I don't have enough information to make a judgment. I don't need to make a judgment. Like my therapist was explaining to me that as humans, you know, our brains try to make meaning out of things, which I'm sure you've heard before. Like we try to
Hmm.
connect the dots, we try to fill in the blanks. And by doing that, I was putting so much, and I still am, you know, when I take these calls, I put a lot of stress on myself to kind of be like, okay, like, is this person really telling the truth, or are they just like scamming unemployment, which
Hmm.
isn't really even like my place to judge, you know, but it's a human thing. So it's been really difficult for me to kind of emotionally disconnect and kind of just take the data when every single person is saying like, can't you just pull a favor for me, like I'm gonna lose my house, my lights are being turned off tomorrow.
Oh, that's hard.
It's like, what do you do when all I can
Oh
say is
my
like,
gosh.
no,
Well,
call
after the call,
again?
I would cry, but I mean, I probably won't cry, but man, that is hard, girl.
It's so
I
hard not
think
to be like, what's your Venmo? Can I send you money right
what's
now?
your Venmo? I love that.
But it's made me so grateful for what I have. And
Mm-hmm.
it's made me realize too that like, like the importance of a savings account, because a lot of these people are saying, you know, like, I'm going to get my lights turned off tomorrow if I don't get this dealt with today. And I know that they are not going to get this dealt with today.
Mm.
And it's so, I think it's kind of eye-opening and like terrifying to the adult world that like, you know, this could be a place that I could be in one day, or that we all could be in. And just like being really grateful for what I have in the moment, because it's not always good. Like it's really good right now, and I'm so grateful to say that I'm doing good during the pandemic, all things considered. But it's really eye-opening in that way.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm just thinking about it now because I'm the kind of person where I'm very empathetic. So I probably, but I mean, I've been on some calls where I would talk to a cancer patient or someone who's sick or someone just like died or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I had, of course, I'm not going to disclose what, like, what I do and what I work, but, um, one call I had was they had to refund them for something because someone died. So obviously that's something I will okay.
Right.
But it was just hard hearing that, like, oh, my husband died, and like, okay, well, I'm definitely gonna give you that refund. And
Right.
then yeah, and then also I had like a 3.5 hour conversation with a cancer patient. In the beginning of the call, she called for a particular reason that had to do with the line of business. And so I took care of it. And then the call ended up being 3.5 hours of her talking about her dead cat.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then, yeah, actually, yeah, the call went a little too long. I was told to end the call because it was at the point where our phone lines closed and I had to out of certain point control the call or otherwise
Right.
I'd be talking to like 5 in the morning. Yeah, it was 3.5 hours. She was so sweet and it was just really hard to like hear everything. Like she was telling me, like she would explain in detail of like her treatments and this and that. And like I said, 3.5 hours. That's a long time.
Yeah.
3.5 hours. I had to use the bathroom so bad. Oh my goodness. I take the calls out of my bedroom since we're working from home,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a bathroom in my room, and it's just the other side of the room.
It's
I'm like
right
kind of
there.
I'm literally looking at it. Obviously, I wouldn't use it on a call because that's a little bad. But I was just like looking at the bathroom, like, oh.
That's such a thing I've had to learn too with like because like one of the main reasons that I'm working this type of job is because of this, like it's a stability W-2 income as opposed to like a freelancer income. Um, because I also do like freelancing stuff on the side, but I just like can't be dependent on that full time. So I
Hmm.
like hate to say that I'm only working for the money, but I'm only working for the money in this situation, because it is
Oh yeah, you
really
need money.
like, it is emotionally, not that it's a lot of money. I mean, it's a little bit over minimum wage, but this situation is so, I can tell that it's emotionally exhausting for me. I was not like trained for this job. Like it was, so that's actually what I was saying earlier, is that my therapist was saying that there's something called compassion fatigue that therapists and counselors are
Mm.
trained for, that when you
Ah.
hear people's terrible stories all day, you learn how to, you know, to distance yourself, how to decompress, how to take care of yourself, and how to kind of let those things go every day. Otherwise, they do emotionally affect you. So I've noticed, like, sometimes I'll work for just like 2 hours in the morning, and I'll get really anxious, like physical anxiety symptoms, like sweaty armpits or like, shaky hands, kind of, because the tone of the call is always, really aggressive or really upsetting. And so I'll notice, like, for the rest of the day, I'm kind of experiencing that residual anxiety. And it's just been making me feel, like I said, exhausted. And I think, like, because I wasn't trained for this, I was trained to take unemployment claims, not to hear people's stories about how they're in the worst situation ever. And um, I think that is not what I want to do with my life. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that I'm a strong enough person that I've been able to do it for so long, and I have been able to help so many people. But I actually just put in my 2 weeks because after talking it over with, like, my therapist and multiple people in my life, I was just like, I'm so stressed out. I'm so exhausted all the time. I'm so overworked. And it's all leading back to this one source. But there is kind of that guilt of, like, but if I quit or I don't work, or like you said, like, thinking of going to the bathroom, I'm like, if I take a break, I'm like, oh, like, someone else is going to lose their electricity if I take a 15-minute break, which I know is not true and is kind of, spiraling to the worst case scenario. But it kind of gives you some guilt, and I think it adds to the exhaustion. So eventually, like, everybody in my life was like, you got to cut this out, because it's stressing me out, because I'm working so much, and because I feel guilty when I don't work, because all I think about is people in bad situations.
Yeah, and I can tell like you're such a really good person for that. I'm literally the same way. But I'm actually just gonna switch gears. Like I'm very curious. Do you like get yelled at or in a position where like people are just not nice? How do you react to that? How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, so when people yell, it's like when, they are at the end of their rope. And I really try not to judge, because I don't know what it's like to be in that situation when, like, you really have no way to feed yourself or pay your rent besides, like, talking to this person on the other end. So I understand, like, where they're coming from. So a lot of times I just, like, turn down the volume and let them vent, which is what we're told to do.
Mm-hmm.
And like that, even listening to them vent and letting them kind of say it out is helpful. Um, and that's a way we can help them, even if we can't actually release their payment. So I try to do that, and I try to say, like, I understand the situation is ridiculous, like, I understand the system is messed up, I'm not saying that it's not. I wish there was more I could do, but there's really nothing else I could do. Like, my hands are tied just like yours are, and kind of just, like, letting them know that they've done everything they can, and I've done everything I can, and like, it really is out of their control. um and the point when people start yelling is when they just don't want to accept that for an answer, which is
Mm-hmm.
really understandable because of how terrible the system is.
Yeah.
And I just don't have an answer, though. That all I can say is continue calling. That's what the unemployment people tell me to say. So it's just, it happens. I would say I get, like, a really terrible call like once a day, and that's when people are like, well, if you can't help me, then, like, what can you do? You're so useless, like, what even is your job? um
Those kind of make me
yeah,
laugh,
exactly.
just like in my head.
I'm like, well, I'm getting paid.
Yeah, those are just the ones that just like those kind of calls, just like, all right, well, I'm sorry you feel that way.
Right. And I'm just like, you're wasting your time, like, you could be calling back and actually getting through to somebody who could help.
Oh my god. Yeah. But that's, I mean, at least it's only once a day. I honestly was like concerned that, especially in that particular position, like, like there's a lot of people out there that are very interesting. So it's good to hear that it's not like a lot of calls that you're getting where people are just like screaming at you or anything like that. Because I feel like you are taking calls in a position where that person is calling and is already stressed out.
Yeah.
And even though it's like, not your fault or anything like that, some people don't have emotional intelligence and would just like snap at you and not realize that you're a human being on the other side. So it definitely is nice that you don't experience much of that. Of course, like it's not perfect. You're gonna experience here and there, a person's going to call you useless, but that's just because the world isn't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually really good to hear this on like the other like side of it. I didn't know like how it was in the unemployment side. I guess it would be definitely harder to listen to people losing their houses. But yeah, I can't even imagine that, especially like everything that we have, and it's like we can't do much, but like like here like during the when the pandemic just happened, here and there I'll like Venmo some like friends who are
Mm-hmm.
like I Venmo some friends if they just like lost their job, just like things here and
I'll
there.
send people like $10
Um
for coffee and be like, go to Starbucks for me.
yeah, just a little something. I think the most I did was like $20, but she's a good friend. But I think for like gas or whatever, I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember what it was. But anytime I can help, I do.
I always donate when
And
people
there's
are like, donate for my dog. I'm like, we have to save the dog.
I love that. There's a lot of well not a lot of it hasn't happened lately, but there's been like was one person who worked for DoorDash and she's in college and she was making her income from DoorDash and DoorDash like kicked her off the platform I think cuz someone I think she gave a referral code to somebody and then someone like was doing fraud or whatever. So she got in trouble for it. So she got banned from DoorDash. And like that was literally her brand on TikTok. Like that's like what got her famous because like her like her stories, her story time with
Switch
DoorDash
to
pretty
Uber Eats
much.
now.
Um I don't even know what she's doing right now. I haven't seen her on TikTok much, but there was a moment where like she had to pay her bills and like she got cut off from it and I think I just Venmo her like $5 or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. I don't know her or anything like that, but I've been watching her. She seems like not a crazy person, so just a couple of dollars for those people. I mean, and then there's times where I went on like the street, like I'll just be direct because in Orlando there's a lot of homeless people, certain parts
Mm-hmm.
of Orlando, and there was just one time I was out there doing Uber. It always happens when I'm out doing Uber, by the way. I was out doing Uber and I was parked in a parking lot, just like waiting for an order. And this guy asked me for money. And then I said he was hungry. And I said, okay, let me buy you food. Because honestly, if we're in a food area, I'd rather me buy him the food than
Yeah.
me give him money. You know what I mean? So I bought him. I asked like, oh, like there was like a Subway, there was like a Chinese place, there was like a pizza place, whatever. And I said, oh, I want to get some Subway, and he said, oh, the bread doesn't do well with my stomach, or I do think picky. But I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna judge. Who knows? Maybe he does have issues with his
Mm-hmm.
stomach. But it was actually very interesting how he was being a little picky as when he was begging for money. But I just kind of like, okay, whatever. And so then I was kind of hoping he would have done Subway because it's cheaper than Chinese food, but I was like, whatever, I'm not gonna question it. So then I just went to the Chinese food place and I got him like a whole meal and called that a day and just called it a day. And like he's like, oh, thank you so much. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, you're welcome. So I don't mind doing that. I mean, I even though it's interesting that I went out to earn money, ended up
Mm-hmm.
spending the money. But honestly, I wasn't gonna say no. You know what I mean? Like I don't. It's also during the pandemic. I don't know if he couldn't afford food or you know what I mean. And he wasn't like weird or anything like that, or sketchy. But I can definitely tell that he wasn't like homeless, but I guess fairly knew of being hungry, just like his clothes and whatever. And he seemed genuine and he was respectful. So I'm just like, whatever. I'm not gonna judge him. So I'll do what I can. I'll buy him a meal. And then there's this other when I was doing Uber again, and I had these kids come to my window at like a stoplight, and it wasn't like they weren't asking for like food or anything like that. Apparently, they were short a couple of dollars for something. They were raising money for their
It's
basketball team
always
or
kids with
whatever.
the basketball
I was
team.
so I was just like, he comes like knocking on my window, and I was like, hi, and he's like, oh, do you have a couple of dollars? We just need a couple of dollars for this and this, whatever. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't have any cash. He's like, oh, I have a cash app. And then I was like, okay. So I think I sent him like $7 and I think he just needed $7 or whatever to make something or and such. So I was like, hey, I thought about like, hey, if you have the guts to get out of your car at a stoplight to go to like with a sign, I'll give you that $7. Like that's courage
Yeah.
right there.
I think you're totally right though. As long as you're being safe about it, like it is putting good karma into the world, and I totally believe, what goes around comes around, and someday, like I said, things aren't always good. Someday there's going to be bumps in the road and we're going to need those people looking out for us. Um and I I
Yeah. No,
really
absolutely.
want to come back to what you said though about with the guy saying that he had stomach problems, and you're almost like, well, I'm offering you a meal and you're really going to be picky right now. But like you said, you don't know the whole story. And I think that is something that I've really learned through this experience, is that I'm only getting a tiny snapshot of these people's lives, and I don't know the whole
Mm-hmm.
story. And as I said before, it's not worth my time to judge. It's not, it's not serving anybody for me to judge, for me to feel superior to them, or for me to feel guilty because I have more than them. Um, like either feeling, or for them to feel that I am, giving off some sort of vibe. Like it's not worth it for anybody for me to make a judgment and then either feel better or feel worse about myself. It doesn't help, and it's not helping them, and it's not helping me. And I've all that to say, I just feel like I've really discovered, like, we're all on our own journey in life, and that, just because you're on unemployment or you're, homeless asking for money on the street, like, that doesn't mean that you are, at the lowest point in your life, or that you're not worth anything, or, all these associations that we kind of come with, being lazy or not wanting to work hard. That's just, those aren't true. And I think I hear that all these days in my calls, is when people are on unemployment, most of them are people who sound like they work very, very hard. But again, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just a really good point. What you said is just like, there's no point in judging. It doesn't benefit anybody. Like, the benefit comes from helping people, and just, giving them $7. You may not get it back. It may not be going to what you think it's going to, but you did a good thing. Maybe you really did help somebody out. Like, we can't know, and because we just don't, and we can't.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And the way I think about it too is like I think that meal that I got him, I think it was like $11 or $12 or whatever, but he got like an actual full meal with and I even said like, do you want a soda or something like that? Because he didn't even ask for the soda. I was like, well, you need something to drink with this. So I just got him a soda too, and it's just like you don't know like how. I mean also Chinese food places they give you a decent, they give you a generous amount of food too, so it's worth my buck. And then also it's like I can live without that $12 or whatever, you know what I mean? I'm not in a financial situation where I'm actually very grateful that I'm actually am not in like a bad
Mm-hmm.
financial situation. I mean, of course I have financial goals and I would like to fully pay off all my debt, but I'm not in a situation where I have to worry
Yeah.
about paying for my bills because I make enough where I'm comfortable and can have fun as well, and I have different opportunities to make money. I have like three different sources of incomes where I can work at to make that income. Where like we don't know that the people who don't have that kind of like opportunity where they're stuck and they have no streams of income, and that's scary and that's horrible. So I definitely am not the kind of person that would be selfish and keep it all to me. Like if I can help people who have that zero stream of income, like I would be more than happy to help them out. Of course I'll be very cautious about it because there's people out there who do take advantage of people, so it's really going to be very
Mm-hmm.
careful with that stuff. um, but at this particular situation, there's definitely gonna be a lot more people who are very genuine about it because we are in a pandemic and a lot of people are losing their jobs. And it's just, I just also just feel like I wish like everyone can have that same mindset of like helping others because there's so many
Right.
millionaires and billionaires out there who aren't even thinking about helping the people who are in the situation. And I mean, obviously, it's their money. They're not like technically obligated to do
But
anything, but it's just kind of
like,
cringy.
I know what you're saying.
I mean, legally, and like,
But I understand what you're saying, where it feels like
technicality.
morally, like, it's okay. Yes, I'm comfortable financially enough to give away money when I feel like, people need it, and I'm not going to miss that $20. And how blessed are we to be in that type of situation? Um, but it's it's really crazy to think that somebody who had so much more wouldn't feel that obligation. I think, and that's, the difference between types of people, and empathetic people and giving people is and I feel like you do too, we feel an obligation to help out when others are down. You help other humans, like, you just be good to people when they need it, because that's just what humans do. um And I think there's I think I talked to you about reading that book, You Are a Badass with Money, Master the Mindset of Wealth. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I have
one of
it.
the things that she talks about is like, you've probably heard the phrase that money is the root of all evil. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just, like a phrase. People have given money that identity. You can give money whatever identity you want. And I think a lot of people give money the identity of, I guess, greed or selfishness, or maybe like, worrying that if they give any of it away, they may have to give all of it away. Insecurity. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Um, but I think, yeah, it's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, this is super existential, but life is so short. I don't know that I'm going to be alive in 20 years to have like a millionaire fortune. So like, not that I would have that, but if I ever
Yeah.
did, I would, I want now. Like, I want to help you. I want to make the world a better place now, not like when I'm like old and rich and can donate. And
No, 100%. And like for me, like that's what gets me going. Like that is what makes me happy is when I do good for people. Like you see my mental
mm-hmm.
health content, like I try to help people that way. You do see how I do One Hope, where part of my job is to raise money for nonprofits. So it's just definitely a really rewarding thing, and like that's kind of how I want to live my life. Is that I know I'm privileged. I know I'm very lucky to have been. I wasn't born in a poor family. I wasn't born in a rich family. Actually, in a way, it was kind of both. Like my dad has a business, so we
Mm-hmm.
had like our ups and downs kind of thing. I was never like poor to the point where I'm like we're gonna lose our house or anything like that. But
But that totally,
um,
I've had a similar
yeah.
situation where like my dad was technically self-employed, and we would make a different amount of money every year, and so there were the ups and downs, and it kind of creates a relationship with money that can feel really unstable. Um, and I feel like I've had to work on that with
Mm-hmm.
like not spending either, like when I get my paycheck, I either like spend it all or I put it all away to save, because I'm like, I just I have to do something with it.
Yeah. It's like you never know. And then for me, like it's kind of like I mean, with my 9 to 5 job, like that's obviously guaranteed income weekly. I because I
Mm-hmm.
hourly pay and such. But like with One Hope, I'll have like ups and downs, and just because it's treated like it is self employment. And then with Uber, it's ups and down as well. I mean, I do put in the hours, but if it's
Right.
not busy, I'm not making any money. And I mean, luckily, I live in an area where I would get orders, but I always usually do it on the weekends because that's usually when there's more orders. And tomorrow's gonna probably be a really
True.
good
Yeah.
day because it's Valentine's Day. So I'm definitely gonna be on the road tomorrow. So yeah, so those two incomes can definitely be a little tricky. So right now I'm not comfortable for to make those like my main incomes because of that reason. But for me, I like, try to save or invest or, stuff like that. Like if I had a lot of money, I would definitely invest it to have like if I was like rich, like I had like, let's say I was like a millionaire or whatever, I would definitely not just have like put some of my checking and my savings. I would definitely
Mm-hmm.
invest a big chunk of it, so at least it's growing somewhere. It just sits there and it grows, and at least you're gonna have that. But yeah, I mean I'm assuming these people have investments,
No, but I get what
but
you're
I don't
saying, and I
know.
totally agree. And
But
I think this, like, because you're 23, right? Can I say that? Do you want to say 25? Okay. Well, you
25.
look really young for 25. Mm. Um, um,
I know.
but I feel like we are in a place in our lives where you figure out financial independence and trying to figure out how to like what is passive income, what are stocks, what are investments, how do you own a vacation property. um
Mhm.
and those are all things that I want to do, and I realize now, like, through bringing it up all back full circle, like through my customer service job, because it has been related to finances, like part of that has been really motivated to say, like, wow, it is really difficult to get through to unemployment. I am going to save more money so that hopefully I never have to be in that situation. And I feel like you may have experienced something similar too with types of your calls. It's like, oh gosh, this person really got themselves into a pickle, like little life lesson that I can kind of, know that I'm not going to make that mistake.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. We hear different experiences. So it's definitely good to put that in the bright light there. So I do see here we are going to 35 minutes of great content. So let's see how we can wrap this up here. Is there anything last things you want to say in regards to your mental health and customer service? I do feel like you talked a lot of good stuff about it. It's really, really valuable
Yeah,
information that
I
you told us
think, I
today.
mean, I feel like I really did say it all. And I think just the number one thing is that I'm still totally a work in progress. And that I've, as terrible as the pandemic has been, I've been really grateful to be pretty okay through it all. And I've used that as a way to work on myself and really grow and grow my mental health. And I just want to say, like, I'm still growing, but it's been a really worthwhile journey. So if you're considering, like going to therapy for the first time or trying to journal or meditate for the first time and just not sure, I think it's really worth it to just try, because I feel like I've seen benefits in my life from just taking a second to analyze it. And I'm nowhere near perfect or
Mm-hmm.
nowhere near done, but it's really worth it. And I think you'll agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're never done. We're always growing. We truly are. And for me, like for it's a little bit off topic, but I've had like I've healed from trauma, like, as a child or as a teenager. I truly feel like I have healed from it. I have, gained new trauma in my adulthood and now working on healing that. And it is
Mm-hmm.
kind of how life is. Like we're just always healing and learning, and that's just a part of growing. But it's all about just being like self-aware about it and working on healing those wounds when they do happen, but also trying our best to, have precaution and such. So it really is like the same as like physical, because we can have like, trip and break our leg or whatever, and you heal it and it can happen again. So that's just kind of how I treat mental health as well. And of course, therapy is definitely should be something like as a precaution, also to get through things. But yeah, that's just kind of like an interesting outlook of how I want to see that. And I just totally came
No,
up with
I
that right
love
now,
that.
by the
I
way.
love it.
Yeah, 100%. So, thank you so much for being on this episode with me. I really do appreciate it. And by the way, you are a badass for, by the way, how you, wow, words. Okay. I was going to say that, yeah, you truly are a badass with that, because from everything how you explained, that is really hard to go through, and that you have such a good mindset and you have such a good attitude about it. And like I said, like, I don't think I can do what you do. So it is a lot on someone's mental health. So that makes you a badass there. And I sounded really corny when
No,
I
I
said
love
that,
it. Thank you
but
so much. Thank you so much.
that's
And
the
I,
whole
I
point
feel
of
like
it.
people say that to me all the
Um,
time, but it really is good to kind of feel like, okay, I'm doing something that is a little more difficult than a normal day job.
No, seriously. I truly think it is. And also gonna let our audience know that we are gonna have
Woohoo!
another episode together. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about like confidence on the internet. Be talking about my YouTube life. She's gonna talk about her acting, and we talk about comparison and social media. So pretty much it's gonna be about like performing on and off camera, social media. Confidence and comparison is going to be on the next episode with her. I am going to, if you
Yeah.
don't mind, I'll put your Instagram in the description if you want me to do that. I realize
No,
I said
please
that
do
without
tag
even
my
asking you, but
Instagram. I'm on all the social networks, but Instagram is the one I use most.
yeah, no, same. Okay, well, thank you guys for listening, and I hope you guys have a great night. And I upload every single Thursday at 7
All
p.m. Eastern
right.
Standard
Bye,
Time.
guys. Thanks so much for having me, Justine.